Namaste to all of you. Here I am again, time and again. I think I must have spoken over 100 of them, exclusively on the subject of spiritualism. Never mixing it with religion, neither with motivational, psychological, inspirational help, pure spiritualism. Spirit, spiritual, spirituality, spiritualism. The subject of spiritualism. The practice of which, of course, is spirituality. And how to become spiritual. And what is the spirit? So let us start. The topic for today is from silence to stillness. I would say it would be more appropriate to say from sound to silence and from movement to stillness. Movement to stillness. Anyway, for the subject of spiritualism, stillness is a very important factor. Very important factor. The subject of spiritualism involves three crucial factors. Very crucial. The first is the self. Who you are, beyond your body and mind, because it refuses to accept that you are either mind or thoughts or brain or body. It's all yours. It's all yours. My mind, my body, my hand, my eyes, my thoughts. You keep on saying. You read your own thoughts, you read your own mind, so you're not body and mind. These are yours. So who you are is the most important aspect of the subject of spiritualism. That is the first. So it involves three factors. The first is the self. Then it goes on to the present moment. The present moment of now. Without any constraints of space and time, because that would be the mental factor, psychological factor, not the spiritual factor. It's the presence of now, from one moment to the next. Existentially, like the plants and the animals live. Like all living creatures live, because for the subject of spiritualism, all living creatures have a life, like we have a life. So, the present moment of now, from one moment to the next existentially. And the third is stillness. Third is stillness. So, the first aspect, knowing the self, is prime. Like I said, it is the quantum, it is the content, it is the quantity. It is the objective of the subject, and the subject is who you are, the self. The subject is who you are as the quality, as the context, not the content. The content is your thoughts, that baggage that you carry, from thousands of years of conditioning from others. Your name, your gender, your knowledge, everything is being given from outside, and you are collecting, and you call that knowledge. Yes, it enhances your intellectuality, but it doesn't affect the self. That's the mind accumulating knowledge in its memory, which keeps changing from time to time. So, the first is the self. The second is the presence of now. It is very important. Why is it important? Because the mind can only function from the past to the future, bypassing the present. In order for it to think, evaluate, analyze, infer within the mind, it takes time. It takes time. So, the past, it collects accumulation, it collects in the memory, accumulates in that, and extracts from that, adding on outside information. So the past, it projects into the future, bypassing the present. It can never catch the present, because the present immediately becomes the past when it evaluates. And with its desires and emotions, it goes into the future, planning for its me and mine, into this and that, for its self-interest and selfishness. So the present is extremely important in the subject of spirituality, which is connected to its stillness. And third is stillness. It is the heart of the above two, because in stillness your real self awakens, not your false thinking self, which is yours. That's why it's false, and it functions in duality, in relativity of this and that, keeps changing within space and time. So, stillness takes you, it's the heart of the two. Your self awakens, and the presence of now awakens, meaning you are into the presence of now. So stillness is the heart of the other two crucial factors. So, in psychology you have the conscious, subconscious and the unconscious. The subconscious rules 98% of the time as per neuroscientists. That is why spiritualism says go beyond the mind, even though the soul is in the mind. The spirit is in the mind. Outside it's useless, it's in its nothingness. Outside your mind, it is in nothingness, it is shunya, it is in shunyata. But inside your mind, it is phenomenal. But that is hardly less than 2%, because 98% your mind is working mechanically in the subconscious level, in an unconscious manner, on auto mode or in auto mode. 98% of the time. So the spiritualism, for that small, tiny 1 to 2%, it says that is the superconscious level of the mind, the superconscious, the divine section of the mind, where the spirit and the soul rest. It is the superconscious level. And then you have the conscious level, which has to attach to this or that in order to become conscious, to duality. And then you have the subconscious, where the mind functions purely from its memory and intellect, not requiring the conscious section. Once it knows how to do a certain thing, it does not require. Like walking, cycling, whatever. So it does not require, it goes on auto mode. And then you have the unconscious and the deep sleep. Very beautifully explained in the Vedas, in the form of Om, the Absolute, the totality which contains all the four sections, the superconscious, the conscious, the subconscious, and the unconscious. And then they go further by saying the fifth state. The fifth state is the Turyatitta, the pure state. The superconscious is Turya. Turyatitta is when you go beyond the consciousness, beyond the individualization, into the universal factor. Turyatitta, in the universal factor of nothingness. So, In thoughts, your mind cannot be still. It cannot be. Impossible. There is no such thing as no mind, which many of us scriptures or philosophers claim. There is no such thing as no mind. No mind means mindless. And when the mind is active and alive or awake, there can be no mind. It's constantly chattering through its thoughts, passing information, collecting information, transmitting information, connected to the universe, connected to the world, connected to the external world. The mind cannot be no mind. Sorry, it cannot be. It cannot be no mind. It cannot be mindless. In stillness, what happens? Yes, one of the definition of stillness is motionless, no movement, but that is for the physical body to become still. For the mental to become still, it is to quieten the chattering of the mind, the chattering of the thoughts, recklessly, randomly, which is given in third law of thermodynamics, that it loses its quality when it functions recklessly and randomly, here and there. Here and there, when energy moves recklessly and randomly, that's the second law. It's the characteristic of energy to move randomly. In relativity, and nuclear, electrical, psychic, all sorts of energies, subset energies, but the absolute energy, the totality of the energy, the wholesome, the fullness is one and not two, is not even one. It's shunya outside and aware energy inside, the conscious principle which differentiates between the living and the non-living. The living and the non-living. So, in stillness, what happens? The thoughts quieten, it becomes choiceless, because thoughts have to choose, to infer from this and that, from duality, from hot or cold, from positive or negative, from truth or lie. So it is in absoluteness, it is not in relativity and stillness. The soul awakens, the mind gets deactivated from its thoughts, and what comes forth? Your instinct, your intuition, your intelligence, your understanding through your own intelligence of what you have gathered from outside, whatever your beliefs are. So it's beautiful. You become creative, you become genuine, you become original, not with borrowed knowledge from here and there, from the media, from the internet, etc., etc. So stillness connects you to the real self, connects you to the real self, and not to the 1,000 years of conditioning, which the mind is full of prejudices, biases out of its belief, conditioned with its name, gender, and everything that has been taught to you by your parents, teachers, etc., etc. So stillness connects you to your real self, to that soul which most of us are not aware of or not bothered to be aware of. So what is the stillness of the mind? What is the stillness? How do you make it still? Or what happens when you are still? This, a few seconds of stillness externally. Say when you are on a beach and there's a beautiful sunset and you are at awe of that sunset, your mind becomes still. You're not comparing. You're not calculating with some other sunset of some other place. You are just in awe and the mind has become still and you are admiring it. You're in awe. That is external. But we are here concerned with the internal stillness. Internal stillness happens when you are passively witnessing your mind, not actively, passively. Passively mean in thoughtless thoughts, in choiceless thoughts. You're just passively witnessing. When the mind is not responding, by clarifying, justifying, comparing, it's not doing anything. It's not evaluating, it's not analyzing. You are just watching your mind and its thoughts passively. Then your 98% of the mind becomes still because you're just watching. That is one form of stillness. And the second form of stillness comes when your mind is trying to understand its own thoughts, understand through its own intelligence of what it has gathered and accumulated. A teacher teaches to a number of students the same subject, the same topic, at the same time, with the same book, with the same teacher, but all students understand in a different manner. Understanding is extremely crucial to life. It gives that quality, it provides that quality to life, understanding, which we people do not give credit to. Understanding is very, very important. And both happens, the passive witnessing and the understanding, in quietness. Quietness meaning when your choiceful thoughts are reduced and choiceless thoughts are there when you are just observing. You have become the observer, you have become the witnesser, you have become not the thinker, you are just observing of what you have gathered from outside. So that is the two aspects, the two characteristics of mental stillness. So let me give you a few methods or a few ways of how to enter into this or make an attempt to go into the stillness of the mind. Stillness of the mind. The first is, like I said, to be meditatively aware from one moment to the next without any constraint of time and space, where there is no measurement, where there is no analysis, just to be meditatively aware. And how do you become aware meditatively? By being alert and attentive. When you're alert, the mind becomes aware. When you're attentive, the mind becomes conscious. Mind becomes conscious of what it is observing. Second is to have a selfless attitude. Because the moment you are selfish, then it's purely that 98% of the mind. To have a selfless attitude, try to cultivate that. Third, passively know your weaknesses through witnessing, through introspection. Passively look within and know your weaknesses as to where you are weak so that you may transcend. And how do you do that? By concentration, by contemplation, by meditation, by being alert, attentive and aware. Concentrate, contemplate. That is how you do it. And then another factor, understanding. Understanding all that you believe. Do not believe blindly. Question what you believe and you will understand better. Questioning is very important. Questioning within. Why? Because it gives you that clarity. Clarity is the ultimate in spirituality. It is the practice of spiritualism. It is the practice of the subject of spiritualism. Clarity is the most important, and 99.9999% of this world do not have the clarity in the subject of spiritualism. That is what I observe. And that is why I do not have so many views on this subject in spite of 20 years of research being devoted and dedicated into this subject. Why? Because nobody wants to know all these things. Everybody is interested in not clarity, but in materiality. wanting more and more out of their desires and emotions. They don't care being anxious, depressed, agitated, conflict, all sorts of negative factors which rules 80% of the mind, which science agrees to it. They're not bothered. And the sad part is they all claim that they're very spiritual. Sorry. So, besides that, another factor I told you is passive witnessing. Passive witnessing is the most important. Without the mind responding, the mind should not respond in clarification and justification. So all these methods are very important which I have given you. And in the end, I would like to add a few lines. That is, you should learn from yesterday, live for today, and do not get lured by your desires and emotions, worrying about the future. Because the moment you live for today, you will celebrate life. Otherwise, your desires and emotions will take you on a roller coaster ride of wanting this and that. There will be never an end. You'll never be content. You'll always be desiring. And in our country, in Hinduism, every prayer ends with Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om means the Absolute. The Absolute contains in the nothingness of our universe, the ultimate, that is the mind, the phenomenal, that is the mind, the divine, which is the mind, in the super section, in the conscious section, in the subconscious section, and in the unconscious section. Your consciousness may go to sleep during the night, but your awareness, that universal spirit, is always awake and aware. The moment you get up, you do not have to be conscious of all that is around. So Om is the absolute, the totality of the nothingness from which everything emerges and goes back into it. Everything appears, matter and consciousness, and goes back into it. That is Om in Hinduism. That is Brahman, Para Brahman. And after that, we say 3 times, Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Shanti means Shant. Shant means silence. So silence. After that, second Shanti, stillness. And after that, third Shanti, moksha, liberation from the mind by making it quiet. That is why stillness is the heart, the center, the essence, the quality of the subject of spiritualism. Thank you for listening.